Yolanda, darling. Hey, hey. Grand Rising. Hello, everyone. Today, perspective. Perspective. As you go through your day today, perspective is important. How do we develop perspective? We develop our perspective from way back then. You know, when we were, as you say in Barbados, short pants. When we were wearing short pants, because we wore uniforms, yeah? So when you're a real, like in primary school, you wore short pants. The boys did, and girls wore little uniforms. So your perspective is developed way back then, even before you could speak. Your perspective was developed. But remember what the Apostle Paul said. Paul did say, when he was a child, he spake as a child. He behaved like a child. But when he became a man, he put away childish things. So you see, we're no longer in short pants, right? We're not in short pants anymore. So when we encounter something, we don't just take it at face value. We taste it, mull it over. Is it valuable to you? Will it uplift you or will it drag you down? These things happen within a split second. So if you train yourself, you discipline yourself, you'll begin to see, oh, you know what? Let that slide. Oh, I know where that's coming from. Because perspective is which law? Correspondence. As within, so without. The scripture tells you, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So when you encounter, it doesn't matter what it is you encounter, good, bad, or indifferent. The point of the matter is, when you look at that thing, you know, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Whatever is inside that person corresponding with you, whatever's within them is coming out. They have to. It is also the law of gender, projecting. So your perspective, why is perspective important? Because it allows you to gauge what is being projected into your subconscious mind. That is what it does. Because a lot of people ask, well, how do you prevent yourself? Well, how do you prevent yourself from being projected into perspective? Because when you look at the thing that is being projected and you say, oh, that's not for me, well, you've just protected yourself from it. Because you say no, or you say, oh, yes, I'll take that. Acceptance or refusal is based upon what? The feeling you get. If you allow yourself to be polarized when you watch something or hear something, and you have a reaction blindly without testing that perspective, well, you've been impregnated mentally. If you watch it or listen to it with a discerning eye and you say, oh, snap, oh, no, that's not good for me. As soon as you say that, you've rejected it. You won't forget it, but you won't let it influence you. Because remember, the subconscious mind just takes information in. But you get to decide what kind of effect it has on you when you take it in. We don't walk with our eyes closed. And there's so much that we see that we don't see. You ever seen one of those videos? And then they come back and ask you what color shoes? What's the person wearing? And you're like, what do you mean what color shoes? Because something else had your attention. Right? So whenever we are out and about, it doesn't matter who you talk to, who you say hello to, who you like or who you don't like. That doesn't matter. What matters is the perspective of the information you are receiving. Are you discerning with it? You must practice discernment. What is discernment? The ability, I don't want to just say it, Discernment is key, though. Let's definition. The ability to judge well. And I always tell us not to judge, right? Now, let's put that in context. Remember, because when we judge, what do? We judge based on perspective, you know. When we judge based on perspective. So if you judge with the thought of, ugh, I suck at this, I'm not good enough, that judgment right there is harmful. That is not what we want. But when you look at a situation, you simply use your perspective now here and your discernment to say, this is going to be helpful or this is going to be harmful. You choose. That's what you do. You choose. I want the Merriam-Webster. There's a reason for that. Discernment is the quality of being able to grasp and comprehend what is obscure. So it kind of looks vague. You can't really see it. You hear something and you're like, what does that mean? But you have the ability to comprehend, which is a deeper understanding of something. You have the ability to look at it and say, helpful, yes, I'll take it. Harmful, ooh, nope. That is discernment. And you notice little people, our little kidlets, they don't have that ability. They just take in the information at face value. They believe you. That's part of what I was teaching my boy yesterday. Because we were driving and I said to him, your brain will believe what you tell it. Oh, he's like, but how, Mom? I said, well, close your eyes. I said, you don't know where we are right now. I'm telling you that you're almost home. So do you believe me or not? You can't see if you're almost home or not. But I'm telling you that you're almost home and you believe me. You believe me because you trust me. I'm your mom. I said, your brain is simply trusting the information you convey to it. This is why discernment is necessary. Because discernment will help you with the perspective. When you choose if this thing is helpful or harmful, that is what will help you because you're going to be telling. You're telling who? You're telling your subconscious mind how to feel about that thing. And so when you have a reaction, when you allow yourself to be polarized, right? When you're leaning one way, left wing, right wing, right? If you allow yourself to be polarized to either the left or the right, your body says, based upon that sensation, oh, well, this is important. And it will bring it up for you again. Why? The law of correspondence. You put it in there. And you gave it meaning when you put it in their perspective. You gave it a meaning when you accepted it. You put it in a category. Oh, you made me so, right? You made me so mad. Now every time you think of that person, your body says, oh, this is important. You've given it that perspective. You've looked at it and you said, oh, this is really influential. And because you've done that, now the body will respond in kind every time that particular thing or something similar to it you encounter. This is why the perspective is everything. If you look at things and you put them in their right place at that moment, well, how do you get to do that? By knowing yourself. By knowing yourself. By knowing yourself. It is important to know yourself. When you know yourself, now you get to decide, that I will accept. This, I will not. Well, how do you know? Because you know your boundary, what you are willing to accept or not. But that is all based on your perspective. And sometimes we have to recondition those perspectives. Because what used to be okay, and you deem it no longer okay, your perspective had to change. The way you looked at it had to change in order for you to say, you know what, this is no longer beneficial to me. Or, you know what, this is of importance to me. That is perspective. And when we begin to practice and exercise our perspective, you don't allow yourself to be easily polarized in any one direction. Because you see, some people always ask, like I told you before, how do you reject something? Or how do you protect your mind? You protect it by using your perspective. We don't do a moon dance. You look at your boundary that you have said, okay, you know what? This is what I'm willing to accept. This, no. And that is setting the guard at the gate. You're setting an algorithm. You see, all of these words that we use, they come from the law. They come from the law. When you set an algorithm, what are you doing? You are catching pertinent information. It's the guard at the gate. So you say, I'm looking for these things, these catch words, these catchphrases. I'm looking for those words. So now every time you hear them, you respond because that's what you've put at the gate. You know, the Garden of Eden when the cherubs were out front with the sword, the flaming sword. They had a very specific missive. Here's who you can allow in. Here's who's not allowed in. So if you just tell it who's allowed in, then that's what it's going to be looking for. You always want your attention where you want it to be as opposed to what you don't want. And we know why that is. Because if you put your attention upon what you do not want, that is exactly what you're going to get because you are looking at it. So put your attention on what you are willing to allow in. You are programming yourself. You're putting the algorithm at the gate to catch the information. This is why perspective and discernment matter. So if you know what your boundary is, when you see the things that match your boundary that you will allow in, then you behave according to the boundary you have. You know this as well as I do. So if you prime yourself, right, with that algorithm that says, this is what I'm looking for. Like my bestie, every time she goes somewhere, she'll see a particular number, a number sequence. Because she put that there. But now give it meaning. Make it do something. Don't just be willy-nilly and random about things. Make that thing do something for you. This is how we practice using the law and our perspective. If you say 444, what does that mean to you? You know, they tell you, because it's an angel number. But yeah, it's an angel number. But what do you want it to mean to you? Well, every time I see 444, I'm going to remind myself to, and I'll do it. Whatever that is. Every time I see the number 9, I'm going to do this. You see, we are always programming ourselves. This is why the perspective is important. Because if every time you see or hear a particular thing and you respond in the same way, you just set an algorithm. But it's how you're looking at that thing. And that's why it always starts and stops with the self. Because it is the self who is looking and interpreting the information. Perspective. You see, it is a beautiful thing that we've been given. Right? It is a beautiful thing that we've been given. So why not use it? Of course, the better man, the brain believes whatever you tell it. This is why your senses, because it is enclosed. It cannot see, hear, taste, touch, smell. It can't do any of those things. Your body does, and it relays the information, but it is your perspective of that information that will tell your brain how to program your body to respond. So that's why, if every time you have a particular conversation in your head and your body responds, you are setting an algorithm, you are training it based upon, oh, I like you, so I'll respond this way. Oh, I don't like you, so I'll respond this way. That's what we're doing. Your perspective. Why do you or why don't you like that particular thing? That is perspective. The way you look at it. You know, when you're growing up and you have to eat certain vegetables, if you were forced to eat them, chances are, even if you smell them, you're like, I can't eat that. Why? It is attached to something. You have a perspective of that vegetable. You do. Something happened and you said, because you were forced to eat that thing. Okra. Oh, but I love okras. Right? Or dumplings. And if you have that memory attached, every time you smell it, you respond in a particular way. You respond in a particular way based upon how you have experienced that thing in the past, the perspective you have of it. So, where in your life are you seeing a particular thing and the way you respond to it? Do you like the way you respond? You see, this is the question. If you like the way you respond to something, well, clearly you want to keep that. But if you do not like the way you respond, don't beat yourself up. Polarity is not a whip, honey. Polarity is reason. Polarity says, hey, where are you now and what are you doing? When you use that, you begin to find the hidden things that are running in the background because polarity causes you to be honest without judgment. Polarity helps you to develop your discernment, to hone your perspective. This is what it does. Let's take a quick moment to welcome everybody into the space, shall we? Twitter, Jeff is here. Tiara, Meep, I see you. Welcome to Twitter, my beautiful friends. It's great to see you all. It's great to see you. Fanbase, who's here? Miss McQueen, KZ, Yolanda, Zola. I see you, my beautiful friends. Welcome and thank you for the love. Who's here on Facebook? Maybe Indy's here. And YouTube, who's here? I gotta do this so I can see my screen. The Better Man, Empress Ella, Sonia, Anot, David, and for the others who've not made themselves known, I see you. And the replay gang, I see you as well. And remember, law school starts today. Anyhow, perspective. When we learn to develop it, we are setting an algorithm. You are training or disciplining your body to respond. Somebody had a quote saying that the body is a slave. Listen, when you hear the word slave, what does that conjure up into your mind? Exactly. Slave is not a good thing. It does not have a good association. So why would you say your body is a good slave? It is a companion. It is a helper. Because why? When you have a companion or a helper, you work together, do you not? You work together. You don't have to beat it. You don't have to coerce it. You don't have to bribe it. You instruct it. And you say, hey, I need some assistance here. Here's how I want you to respond. And you tell it how you want it to respond, and it will respond in kind. You and I well know that forcing somebody to do something, oh, you have got to apply some force. And it is never met with happiness, is it? No. This is why, if we, perspective, you want your body to be a slave, or do you want it to be a faithful companion? This is why Neville Goddard says your subconscious mind is like a wife. She just does what you want her to do. You know, she just accepts the information. I don't like that one either. But I understand what he's saying. I understand what he's saying. I'll give you a different perspective of the body now. What if you saw your body as your subconscious mind? Why is that? You tell it what to do, and it will do it. It just accepts it. It holds the memory. The body keeps the score, the book, right? It holds the memory. Who else do we always say holds the memory without judgment? Subconscious mind. So if you know that you're programming your body to respond in a particular way, this is why I always like looking at it as the subconscious mind instead. I use my brain because I'm consciously looking at a situation and saying, I want to respond in this way. And so I begin to practice by using the law of gender to project from my brain into my body what I want to do over and over and over again. Muscle memory. So you see, when we're teaching our bodies how to behave, that is what you want. You gently tell it what you want it to do, and you show it by way of that action because it becomes a habit. So this is why the perspective, the way you look at something, and the way it makes you feel. This is why I told you a little while ago what doubt is, what it truly is. When you have doubt about a situation, it's just because you are already holding a different perspective. It is already a placeholder there. And so the doubt says, well, I don't believe you. Why not? Because there's already something in its place. You already hold a particular perspective. So now to eradicate the doubt, perspective. Change the perspective to match the new way you want to be. I trust this is making sense today. You see, we have perspectives, but they may not be your own perspective. Like if I made my granny upset, oh, I'd get a lash, you know. But my grandfather would always say, you don't need to beat a child for everything. Whereas my grandmother thought, you spare the rod, you spoil the child. My grandfather believed teaching the child is better than beating it. Perspective, right? Because every time we hear the word discipline, what's the first thing that comes to mind? We want to associate discipline with punishment. Punishment is punishment because punishment and reward, you see polarity? It is only a matter of vibration that makes that punishment a reward and vice versa. But discipline, to disciple, is to teach. So when you hear the scripture, go ye into the world and make disciples of all men, Jesus wasn't telling them to go beat all men. He was telling them to teach. So when you discipline someone, you teach them how to be. You teach them and help them to develop their perspective so they can learn discernment. To discipline is to teach because it helps you to develop your perspective. Your perspective is the way you see something, your view of it. Take some time to watch yourself. Watch your step. That's what we do. Take that time. But remember, when you observe, you are not observing to punish or reward. You're observing to see if this thing is beneficial or not. That's why we observe. It's one of the first things we learn in TCM school, traditional Chinese medicine. When somebody comes in and they say, oh, my back, before you even put a needle in them or prescribe a herbal formula, you observe them, their mannerisms, the way they speak to you, the color of their tongue, the coating on their tongue, the size of their tongue, their pulse. Observation. Because it will give you a perspective of what you are dealing with. What is this thing? Because the back pain is only the symptom. Does that sound familiar? It sounds like causation to me. The back pain is the effect. You have to find the cause. You find the cause by observing the effect. Perspective. You must know what you're looking at. Because if you determine what you are looking at is harmful, you will respond as if you are threatened. And we all know how that turns out. Some fight will ensue. Oh, I got time today. That's how we respond in the face of a threat. Perspective. So if someone says to you whatever they're going to say to you, you know how we want to say constructive criticism. It's just judgment. But if you teach, right? If you know you're dealing with someone who does not take criticism well, because you've observed how they respond, what are you going to do? If you are in a position of authority at your job and you have to train people, this is why it is helpful to observe. So if you're training someone to do, you're discipling them. Remember this. If you are discipling them on how you want them to do a particular job and you see that they're tense or whatever, you take a moment and you say, okay, look, how can I make this a little bit simpler? This is what you begin to say to yourself, and you watch them and you tailor how you teach them. This is why perspective, as opposed to, oh my God, you don't learn well. You're so hard to teach. Really? This is why observation is important. You see, perspective. So if you are a boss, how do your employees function? So when you look at them, you are seeing a behavior, as within, so without, right? So if you see them and their back goes up and they become defensive, you know they're primed for an argument. You can see it. So what do? You don't go in with guns blazing. No, you come in and you soften the situation with your own demeanor because you can see clearly what they have going on. So it is the perspective. If you are planning an event and you need a particular coordinator to do something for you, how are you going to convey that message? If you come in and you got up on the wrong side of the bed and you start speaking and you see how they respond, you're like, oh, you know how they tell you read the room. Perspective. If we always remember the law of correspondence, as within, so without, whatever you have within you, if you are just a little bit irate, that's what's going to come out. Do you want to be irate? Oh, just don't be like my boy and say to me, Mom, you don't have to nag me. And I'm like, well, if you would do it when I ask the first time, I wouldn't have to nag. He's like, but you don't have to nag. You just want it done now, the way you want it done. And they make you question your whole existence. So I am learning that when I say it once, it'll get done. Because he doesn't like to be nagged. And I don't have to nag. Because it raises my blood pressure. Perspective. You're not moving fast enough. You're not doing what I want you to do now. You never listen. Really? So you see, perspective. Allow yourself to observe what is happening. And you use your discernment. Is this helpful or is this harmful? And you look at these things because danger is different. Your body will, that is beyond you. Your body will react all of its own volition if there's danger. That's different. But this is why you and I get to practice honing our perspective and recognizing that our perspective is based on what happened to you, right? What happened to you? Do you want to continue with that behavior? And then you decide from there. This is what it means to be disciplined. You've taught yourself how to respond. Because there's so many questions I see when people ask, you know, how do you discipline children? Like, you teach them what you want them to do and how you want them to behave. But you tell them why. But we're so used to do as I say and not as I do. We're so used to that. It is the same for men and women. The type of man you become, or the type of man you want to become, or the type of woman you want to become, is dependent upon how you discipline yourself. That's it. If you fly off the handle at everything, you have your dog in every fight, you are undisciplined. You haven't taught yourself how to respond. And that can be an exhausting life, to just be fighting all the time. Nothing will deplete you faster. But if you train yourself with the ability, if somebody is across the room and they're cussing somebody out, well, you already know what's inside. You can see the hurt, you can hear it. Because it's being projected into the room. The anger, the rage, it's being projected into the room. So you don't look at them and go, oh, dumbass. What's wrong with you? No. You look at it and you say, this is correspondence. I see it. And you look at the effect that's happening. So if you feel the anger, and you can always tell. So if they're undisciplined, you don't want to be around them, because an undisciplined person is unpredictable in a way. But you always know, because you've got causation as your friend. If someone is behaving a particular way in a space, and you see the effect, well, you know what that effect is going to cause. It only escalates from there because you can see their undisciplined nature. And you remove yourself from that situation before it gets worse. You don't want to mess around and find out. You know what I'm saying? This is why perspective, learning it and discernment, developing it, so you can see what's happening around you at any given time. At any given time. At any given time. This is why we use our perspective to ascertain what the heck is going on around us and how we behave, interpret how people are behaving. I'll tell you, it is actually very quickly that it happens. It's very quick that it happens. Once you've practiced, you can see what's happening around you. You're like, oh, I know how to deal with this. I'm up out of here, you know? Or, oh, this is nice, let me stay. And then you end up with things like, you know how some people say, well, how did you miss that red flag? Because you don't allow yourself to be influenced by your emotions. You allow yourself to interpret the emotion, or you choose them. You know, if you're meeting somebody, this is why Again, you don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry. It seems like it's random, but it isn't that I'm telling you these things. I'm giving you life situations where you can apply them because we all go grocery shopping. We all meet people. You go grocery shopping when you're hungry. What are you going to do? You're going to buy everything. So you'll miss the important things that you actually need. It's the same thing if you're looking for a relationship from a place of desperation. This is how you'll miss the red flags. Oh, you haven't missed them. You've seen them. We don't miss them. We just don't acknowledge them. This is why perspective is so important. How are you behaving? Where are you behaving from? Where is it? So this person comes along and whispers sweet nothings to you, and oh, you swoon. Right? Red flag number 1. Red flag number 2. Listen and observe what is happening. If your perspective is one of desperation, shoot, that's why the perspective is important. I trust that that makes sense to you today because it will prevent us from doing things that are, just let's leave it at that. It'll prevent us from doing crazy things. Brie, pens, shea butter. Yes, David, Lance is tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes. So perspective, my friends, is so important. Your perspective influences everything that you come into contact with. Your perspective causes you to behave in a particular way. And the way you behave is the way you are treated. Cause and effect. This is how and why we take the time to just sit there. Oh, but Angela, I can't sit still for too long. Really? You can't sit still for too long? Ah. Well, I can tell you right now, we all scroll through some kind of a timeline. You can do that. You can sit for 5 minutes in the silence and just breathe and feel your body. How does it feel on the chair? Those kinds of things. You begin now to get a different perspective of yourself. Because when you get a perspective of the self, you can predict how you will behave in any given situation. This is why we practice. Practice is important, right? So remember today, as you go about your day, whomever you come into contact with, good, bad, indifferent, it matters not. Where are your boundaries? You don't have boundaries. Well, I don't even know how to develop a boundary, Angela. Well, step 1, who are you? What are you willing to accept? Step 2, only accept those things. Every time. Doesn't matter who you come into contact with. You put up your boundary. A boundary is not there to punish somebody or keep them out. A boundary is there because it's showing you who you are. What are you willing to tolerate? And if you notice, by way of the law of gender, every time something is projected and you allow it in willy-nilly, meaning you don't have a boundary, the more you see it, the more you hear it, you begin to do what? Your boundary is being pushed. It's just being pushed. Over and over and over again. Until such time you're like, oh wait, what? How did this happen? You see, Fear is a very funny thing. You may have a boundary, but if you do not hold firm to your boundary, fear, if projected into you, will cause you to acquiesce. What does that mean? Similar to surrender, but without a fight. Surrender is when you see your enemy and you're like, he's bigger than me. And you wave the white flag and you say, I'm good. Because you've had a fight before you've encountered them. You wave the white flag. But acquiescence is you don't even fight. You don't even stand firm for your boundary. You don't always have to argue to hold your boundary. You do not have to argue or fight to hold your boundary. Because silence goes a very long way. Did you hear me? Silence goes a very long way. This is why, if you know the perspective that you hold, if you know the way you see it, is it opinion or is it fact? But again, the more the law of gender is used, what is the law of gender? Masculine is to project from the conscious mind into the subconscious mind, which is feminine. It accepts. And then it will give you back the desired experience or the thing you projected in there. That is masculine and feminine. That is gender. So if you, I don't even want to say I'm speaking in code, but I am. As the old people would say in Barbados, pick sense from nonsense. I'm saying to you today, when we allow the law of gender, this is why recognition is important. When you see the law of gender, when you see it, you know exactly what's happening. And because you know what is happening, the boundary is there. You say, that is unacceptable. And you reject it. You don't have to have a foghorn. I reject it. You don't have to have that. Silence will help you. You don't always have to fight. But the perspective will help you. So when you see it being projected, and every day, all day, something is being projected. Whether words or images, smells, it doesn't matter. They're being projected. And if you can recognize when a projection is happening, that is all of the battle. Because it is the unsuspecting or the noscient, meaning you don't know. They're the ones who are influenced by the projection. This is why I say to you, the way you see something, the way you interpret that information will cause you to behave in a particular way. This is why your mind is your sanctuary. This is a sanctuary. It is your sanctuary. It is your inner sanctum. You guard it. Perspective will help you to guard your mind. What is that scripture? And the peace of God transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds. Do not be anxious about anything. Philippians 4, verse 6 and 7. That's the scripture. Did you see the law in it? Do not be anxious about anything. In everything, this is the scripture here, by prayer and petition. So focus on it and practice. Prayer, focus, petition, practice. And the peace of God, the law, which transcends all understanding, will guard your what? Your hearts and your minds. Why guard your heart and your mind? Why? Because once something is projected into it, if you allow it in there without discernment or perspective, you are vulnerable. Because once a seed is planted, if you don't catch it and uproot it, you must bear the fruit of it. So as you go about your day to day, as you go about your day, what are you allowing to just go past your guard? That's why you set the guard at the gate. Your algorithm, based upon your perspective. You look at this and you deem it helpful, I accept you. But if you look at it and you say, you know what? Okay, I don't want that, but I'll take this instead. Accept the things you're willing to accept. Don't worry about what you have to reject. By acceptance of that thing, you have already rejected the other. Always keep your mind where you want it to be as opposed to where you don't. Because it is your attention that confirms you want it. So put it on a thing you want and say, this is what I'm willing to accept. That is your perspective. And when you do that, you will find that when something is being projected, your heart is guarded. Why the heart? Because the feeling, the sensation. When you have a sensation about something, remember, that is how you impress the subconscious mind. If you allow your emotions to be manipulated, you will impress the subconscious mind. And what you impress is what you express. Just so we're clear. What you impress upon the subconscious mind is what you will express in your experiences. Listen to the word experience. Something from the inside out. Law of correspondence. That's why you guard your heart and your mind. Because those two things will determine, whatever is inside those two things will determine what you experience. Anyway, that's what I want to leave y'all with today. That perspective. Pay attention to it. Mold and shape yourself into the person you want to be. You are the potter, but you are also the clay. You are the sculptor, yet you are the marble. You are the artist as well as the subject. This is what you and I are. I don't know if that's even grammatically correct, but there, I said it. We are the ones to shape ourselves. We are the ones to shape ourselves. But if you don't shape you, well then, it must be shaped. So if you're not shaping you, who is? Who is? I'll leave you with this though, because I want you to recognize gender out in the world. The projection is this: left wing, right wing, right? That's what we hear all the time. You're on the left, you're on the right, blah, blah, blah. But at no time is anybody asking about the bird in the middle. Nobody's asking about the bird in the middle. Do you know why nobody's asking about the bird in the middle? Because you have been distracted by the wings of the bird. What kind of bird is it? Is it friend or is it foe? But we're busy You see, perspective is everything. We are busy looking at the left or the right. It is irrelevant if there's a left or a right. What are left and right attached to? That will tell you what you are dealing with, friend or foe. But you see, if we walk around and we are in defense of something, you've been polarized. And because you've been polarized, you're going to act in a particular way. Is that the way you want to act? Or are you acting that way because you've been polarized to behave in such a fashion? You ever heard somebody say, I have no idea why I just did that? Is that what you want to live like? No. We do it with children all the time. All the time we do it. But I want you to see it on a bigger scale. We tell our kids, okay, look, you can go to bed at this time or you can go to bed at this time, 8 or 8:30. And they choose. Because 8:30 is a little bit later. That's when they'll choose. But are they not going to bed? What have they chosen? The illusion of choice. You want them to go to bed. So you give them the options of what you want them to do. That is the law of gender. Something is projected, and from that projection, you choose. I want you to see it for yourself when you go out into the world. The law of gender is at work. People always ask me, well, who's doing it, Angela? Listen, if I knew who was doing it, I'd tell you. But what is more important is what's being done. What's being done? Look around you and recognize every time there is a polarizing event, right? An emotion was triggered. That's why you were polarized. Based on what? Your perspective of the incident, your perspective of what was projected. I don't know if you feel me today, but I want you to see it for what it is. And remember, the scripture also tells us to be wise as serpents, but harmless as doves. I don't know that scripture was for us. But I digress. Recognize the laws every day, throughout the day. And when you recognize them, now you are aware of the work you have to do to hone and discipline your own life. So your perspective is very important because your perspective determines how you behave. It is a cause. Causation. The effect is what you do, the behavior that you do, the experience that you have. So when you go through the day, is it your perspective you're using or someone else's? Anyway, countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3. You see, today we start law school. Indeed, we do. We are learning the laws. If you haven't signed up, now is a good time. Now is a good time. Yes, you'll always be able to catch the replay of it, but it is the live stream that is important to have because it's the questions that you'll have from what you read in the KYBALION about the law, and those questions will be answered in the live stream. And there will be exercises that you do. So if you haven't signed up, let's not sit on the fence. You can click on the link in the description or in my bio for link. It's my link tree, and it will say law school. Just click on it and sign up there. Because do you want to change or do you want to remain the same? But listen to what Neville says. Neville says the desire to change must be stronger than the desire to remain the same. If you want to do it and you want to send me a DM, holla at you, girl. If you have questions, slide into my DMs. You know where to find me on social media. 2190 is almost over, and if you want to catch that one where we develop habits and lifestyles, that is also an option that's available too. I only have one thing to teach you, and that is how to what? Memorize, recognize, and utilize the laws for any situation. More money in the bank, a relationship, a brand new car. You know, I feel like I'm on The Price is Right. But those kinds of things. And once you do them, you will find that you elevate yourself. There's lots to learn. Twitter, you know I love you. Oh, snap. Muck45 Ruru is here. Oh, of course, my sweet Tiara and Meep. I see you all. Yes, Jeff. Thank you all for being here today. I do appreciate your time. I do. And I love you all. You know where you can catch me for the last remnants of gravy from the bowl. YouTube. Much love, Twitter. Much, 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 much love. Twitter is closed. Fanbase, thank you all for being here on such a lovely day. It is appreciated. Zola, Yolanda, Miss McQueen, thank you all for being here. I do appreciate you all. Much love. Much, much, much love. Ooh, and tonight, yes, we have Lance, but we also have Feel Your Thoughts at 9:45 p.m. It'll be here on Fanbase. It'll be on Facebook, and it will be on YouTube because we'll hit the bowl. Yeah. Much love, everybody. Much love. Fanbase is closed. Fanbase is closed. Let me get into the chat for YouTube. It is so good to see you all. I trust today was helpful. I know it can seem like a lot. I know it can seem overwhelming. Hi, Zola. I know it can seem overwhelming. I get it. I get it. But don't let that scare you. Right? Don't let that scare you. Take comfort in the fact that you now have the weapon of choice, which is the law. Ah, Levosio, I see you. Good morning to you as well. You see, perspective. Get to know you, because your perspective will help you to put your boundaries in place with what you are willing to accept and how you want to grow your life. But remember, the ball is in your court, because there's none but the self. There's none but the self. Right? None but the self. So when you allow yourself to develop your perspective based upon who you are because you've spent some time just allowing yourself to emerge. Who are you? That's an important question. Knowing who you are helps you to discern what I like and what I don't like, what I'm willing to accept and what I won't. So having a clear perspective, because clarity is everything, because the universe is a mental creation, the all is mind. So a clear picture brings inner peace, yeah? Why? Because muddy waters, you know, when you can't see clearly, it brings a sense of unease when you don't know. This is why confusion confusion can be a weapon. But if you practice clarity, you'll see through any illusion of confusion. Oh snap, I was a poet and didn't know it. Because I want you to ponder that. When you don't understand something or you're confused, it agitates. But clarity puts you at ease. And what does the law always ask you? What do you want? And you get to answer, I want to create dot, dot, dot. And you are clear. You see, when I tell you that the law sets you free, that's not my opinion. Look at it. Every day it asks you for clarity. Every day it says, be clear. Polarity, where are you now and what are you doing? Where do you want to be and what do you want to do? But you've got to be clear about those things because the law puts you at ease. The law brings peace of mind. It does. So begin to practice your perspective. Begin to practice getting to know yourself, what you like, what you don't like. Because it's usually the things that you don't like you see first, huh? And then that way you can say, I don't like that. So what would I prefer instead? Because every cause has its effect, but every effect also has its cause. So if you don't know one, but you know the other, do you see how you're always free? Again, look at the law. If you don't know the cause, do you know what you'd like to experience instead? If you know the effect, you can generate the cause. And if you know the cause, shoot, you can bring about the effect. So again, at every turn, the law frees you. Dare I say it is a skeleton key, it opens any door. But you and I have got to be bold and use it. Use the law for the love of God on all things. Why stay in captivity when there's a key right there and all you have to do is pick up the key? And you notice how the door doesn't unlock without that key. So if you have a lock, there's a key. Sounds like cause and effect to me. So today, go forth and observe the laws that are all around you in their splendor. They're there. Mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, causation, and gender. Use the laws. Use the laws. I was going to say something, but I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to leave it alone. So remember, law school starts today, my beautiful friends, and I'll see you around. I'll see you when you get there. I'll see you. Thank you again for being here and sharing your time with me. And I know sometimes, especially for the newer ones who are here, they're like, oh, she is nuts. That elevator does not go all the way to the top floor. Few bricks short of a load. What? Few sandwiches short of a picnic basket. Oh, I've heard them all. I may appear to be crazy, but that's just the perspective, isn't it? When you use the law, when you look at the world through the lens of the law, you will see. Oh, you'll see exactly what's happening. Look around you. The law brings order. What's our world like? Chaos, perhaps? But there's a reason. Every cause has an effect, and every effect has its cause. So don't think for one moment that chaos is random. Not in our world right now. It is not random because there is no randomness in the law. You know how you know there's no randomness? Every cause has an effect, and every effect has its cause. Correspondence, as within, so without. There is no randomness. You know the cause, you can predict the effect. So then I tell you, you look around you. This is why parables were used. And the scripture says, those who have ears to hear, let them hear. There's a reason. You know how Saul was on the road to Damascus and he was blinded? But then after he came into contact with the law, what happened? The scales fell from his eyes and he could see what was really there. Remember Neo when he says, why do my eyes hurt? Morpheus says, you've never used them. The law opens your eyes because you can't unsee it now when you use the law. Lavoisier. Thanks. That's nice. I appreciate that. He says I'm amazing. Or she says I'm amazing. I don't know who it is. But thank you. Um, the law is there. And I tell you, if you use it, you can only ever be free. It doesn't matter what kind of pickle you think you're in. Use the law. Use it. There's a reason why we don't know it. Again, I'm not going to keep you all because it is a beautiful day and I just want you to see what's going on around you. Because when you see it, huh? Well, I'm sure you'll have questions when you see it. But if you apply the law, you'll answer the question. Because there is no question without an answer. You have a question, the answer is there. Anywho, 2, 1. I love you all. And I appreciate your time every single day that you show up. But most importantly, test the law for yourself. You know how to test it? What do you want to see? Tell yourself what you want to see. Tell yourself what you want to see. Somebody was saying that the other day. They were like, they wanted to be so outrageous. And they said, well, I want to see a flying pig. Pfft, where are we going to see those? Tell you what, this person, I don't know where they were, but what did they see on the computer screen? For whatever, some commercial or whatever they saw, a flying pig. Tell yourself what you want to see. This is how you practice. This is how you test your skill with using the law. The law is already set. It doesn't change. The only thing that's flexible now is us. That's why we bend to the law. So test yourself. Test your skill. What do you want to see? What do you want to see? Project it. Gender, project it outward. I want to see whatever that is. And let me know. Leave it in the comment section. Did you see what you said? Oh, because you don't see it in 30 seconds, that doesn't work. I truly love you all. I truly, truly do. I truly, truly do. Anyway, go forth. Memorize the law. Recognize the law. But most importantly, utilize the law. In order to memorize them, you have to learn them. I'll see you in law school. Much love. Much, much, much love to you all.